Okay, let's dive straight in. We're looking at the paper Kosmos, an AI scientist for autonomous discovery. This one's making waves because, well, it suggests AI can genuinely automate months of scientific work.
Absolutely. The big idea here is scaling up discovery. Cosmos uses these iterative cycles, think parallel data crunching, literature review, hypothesis generation, all running pretty much on its own.
And the core tech enabling this, the thing that's really new, is this structured world model. It
Yeah.
seems to get around that context loss problem we see with other agent systems.
Exactly. And the scale is just, wow. A single run averages 42,000 lines of code, reads 1,500 papers, can run for 12 hours straight.
12 hours. And collaborators are saying a 20-cycle run is like, what, 6 months of their time?
Yeah, 6.14 months is the estimate from the collaborating labs. And importantly, it's not just outputting junk. Scientists checked its report's 79.4% accuracy overall. Plus, everything is traceable. Every claim linked back to the code or a paper.
Okay, traceable and accurate. That's a solid start. Let's really unpack the architecture. You mentioned the world model. How does it actually prevent that context loss over a run generating, 42,000 lines of code? That seems like the central challenge.
It really is. Older systems, they often worked step by step, or the sharing between different parts was limited. Cosmos uses this world model more like a central knowledge hub, a dynamic graph, maybe. It synthesizes everything coming in from the different agents.
Oh, okay. So it's not like the data agent does its thing, throws a summary over, and hopes the lit review agent gets it.
Not at all. The world model is constantly updating. It keeps the main story of the investigation coherent, tracks the history.
Right. So how does the cycle work then? You give it a goal and some data.
Pretty much. An open-ended objective, a data set. Then, in each cycle, boom, it fires off parallel tasks.
Yeah.
Up to 10 agents doing different things simultaneously.
10 at once.
Yeah. Data analysis, searching literature, whatever's needed. Their outputs, summaries, code snippets, insights, all feed back into that world model.
And the model digests that and then decides what to do next.
Exactly. It synthesizes the new info and proposes the next best set of tasks to pursue the objective.
That parallel approach, plus the synthesis.
Yeah.
That explains the depth they can achieve. The paper mentions up to 200 agent rollouts, which is, 8 times more than previous systems?
An 8x increase, yeah. And that's crucial because, let's be honest, science isn't a straight line, right? You hit dead ends. You need to explore multiple paths at once.
Definitely.
And for the technical folks listening, the rigor here is important. They really emphasize traceability. Every single statement, every figure in a Cosmos report, it's linked, cited.
Directly to the line of code in a Jupyter notebook or the specific paper.
Precisely. That level of automated granular citation, that's setting a new standard for reproducibility in automated science.
Okay, let's talk scale and numbers. Because this is where you really see the shift, right? It feels like the bottleneck moves from doing the work to figuring out what work is valuable. What are the hard metrics?
Oh, the numbers are staggering. That 42,000 lines of Python code, that's averaged across 166 data analysis agent rollouts per run.
Wow.
Compared to their previous system, Robin, that's nearly a 10x jump, 9.8x in code complexity generated. And at the same time, it's reading 1,500 full scientific papers, full length, via 36 literature review rollouts.
Okay, so that's the raw compute power.
Yeah.
But how does that translate into saved human time? They had 2 estimates, right?
They did. The first was sort of a back-of-the-envelope calculation, assuming, an expert takes maybe 15 minutes per paper, 2 hours per notebook analysis.
Which seems generous, honestly.
Right. That calculation puts a single run at about 4.1 expert months of work.
Okay, 4 months. But the second estimate.
That's the more compelling one, I think. They went back to the academic labs, the ones who provided the actual data and research questions, and those experts estimated a 20-cycle run would have taken their teams 6.14 months.
6 months, so quite a bit higher than the simple calculation. What does that difference tell you?
Well, it suggests Cosmos isn't just doing things faster. It's likely making smarter, more synergistic decisions because of that shared world model context. It cuts down on the human time needed for, rethinking the plan or switching contexts.
That makes sense. It's more efficient exploration.
Exactly. And they showed this efficiency is predictable. They found the number of useful scientific findings scaled linearly with the number of cycles they ran, up to 20 cycles at least.
More compute in, more science out. Predictably.
Yep. More cycles, proportionally more valuable results.
Okay, but now the reality check. Accuracy. That 79.4% overall figure sounds good, but you hinted the breakdown is important.
Yeah, it's crucial. When you look closer, statements based purely on executing tasks, almost flawless. Like data analysis statements, 85.5% reproducible, literature review facts, 82.1% validated by scientists. That's solid automation you can trust. But the statements requiring interpretation or synthesis, that number drops sharply, only 57.9% accuracy.
Oof, less than 60%. So it's great at finding facts in data or text, but not so great at weaving them into a bigger, correct scientific story.
That's pretty much it. It's like it can gather all the puzzle pieces perfectly, but struggles to assemble the picture correctly. Excellent process, sometimes weak conclusions.
That feels like a key limitation. It might confuse statistical noise with a real signal.
That seems to be part of it. The paper mentions this issue conflating statistical significance with scientific value. That's where the human expert remains absolutely critical, filtering that final output.
Right. Let's pivot to the discoveries then.
Yeah.
Because it did make real contributions despite that limitation. It wasn't just a tech demo.
No, definitely not. It produced validated findings across different fields. Take Discovery 1 in Metabolomics.
Okay.
The setup was unpublished data from mouse brains, looking at how cooling protects neurons by activating specific cells, KOR plus POA neurons. Complex stuff. The goal? Find the metabolic mechanism.
And Kosmos found.
Independently, it zeroed in on nucleotide metabolism as the key pathway. And it got specific. It found this inversion pattern. Precursors, bases, nucleosides went down, phosphorylated products went up.
Which means?
That pattern suggests the activation of these energy-saving nucleotide salvage pathways. That was the core mechanistic insight the human researchers also found.
Wow. And quantitatively,
Yes.
How close was it?
Almost identical. They compared the log 10 fold change estimates for the top 15 metabolites, Cosmos versus human findings, an R-squared correlation of 0.998, basically a perfect replication.
Incredible. Okay, so it could reproduce complex known biology. What about Discovery 2? Material science, perovskite solar cells. Totally different field.
Right, shows the versatility. Here, the input was data on environmental conditions, temp, humidity, solvent pressure during solar cell fabrication.
Did it just confirm known stuff?
It confirmed a known major factor. Humidity during one step, thermal annealing, acts like a fatal filter. Too high, the device fails. That was known.
But it added something new.
It did. It found a previously unreported linear relationship. As the partial pressure of a specific solvent, DMF, increased during the spin coating step, the short circuit current density, basically, how much electricity the cell makes decreased linearly.
So a new, subtle optimization factor that human analysis missed.
Exactly. Something engineers could use right away.
Okay, let's move to Discovery 4. Statistical genetics and heart fibrosis. This used Mendelian randomization, or MinR.
Yeah. It was told to use MR on public GWS data for a proxy of heart fibrosis. For listeners, MR uses genetic variants like natural experiments to try and figure out if something like a protein level causes a disease rather than just being correlated with it.
And Cosmos applied this method correctly.
Flawlessly. It independently pinpointed the SOD2 protein superoxide dismutase 2 as a main causal factor reducing fibrosis. The effect sizes it calculated matched the human analysis almost perfectly, correlation of 0.9991. Same protective effect direction.
Okay, so again, replication. But did it go further?
It did. This is where it gets interesting. It proposed a specific molecular mechanism. It suggested a variant in the tail end of the SOD2 gene's messenger RNA, the 300 UTR, messes up a binding site for a microRNA called HSA-MIR2223P. This isn't just statistics anymore. It's a testable biological hypothesis about how SOD2 protects the heart. The paper called it an actionable mechanism for follow-up.
Very cool. So it can reproduce, refine, and even propose mechanisms. What about entirely new methods, Discovery 6 and Alzheimer's research?
Right. This used proteomics data protein levels from neuron pools. These pools were ordered on a kind of timeline called pseudotime, tracking the buildup of tau protein, a hallmark of Alzheimer's. The question was, what breaks down when?
And Cosmos came up with a new way to analyze this.
Yeah, it developed its own method. It used something called segmented regression.
Segmented regression on what, specifically?
On a combined score representing the extracellular matrix, the ECM, that's the sort of scaffolding around cells, plotted against that pseudotime axis.
And what does that show?
It found a clear breakpoint. At about 0.58 on the pseudotime scale, the decline of the ECM suddenly accelerated. Now, the key insight is that tau accumulation really kicks in around 0.5 on this scale.
Oh, so the ECM breakdown happens after the tau problem is established.
Exactly. It suggests ECM failure is a downstream consequence, not the initial trigger. That sequencing is important.
Definitely. Okay, one more Discovery 7. This sounds like maybe the most novel one. Finding something the original researchers missed in their own data.
Yeah, this one's potentially high impact. It used single-nuclei RNA-seq data comparing vulnerable neurons in the entorhinal cortex, or ENT, an area hit early in Alzheimer's, with resilient neurons elsewhere in the cortex of aged mice.
And Cosmos found a new mechanism for why those ENT neurons are vulnerable.
It proposed this coordinated mechanism it called a prophagocytic axis.
Prophagocytic axis, break that down.
Okay, two things happening at once. First, in those vulnerable aged ENT neurons, multiple genes for specific transporters called P4 ATPase flippases were turned down. These flippases normally suppress eat me signals on the cell surface.
So turning them down means more eat-me signals,
Yeah.
like phosphatidylserine exposure.
Precisely. The neuron is basically putting up a flag saying, I'm compromised, remove me.
Okay, that's part one. What's the second part of the axis?
At the same time, the brain's immune cells, the microglia, showed an upregulation of genes involved in sensing those eat-me signals and initiating phagocytosis, the cleanup process.
Wow, that's a genuinely novel and clinically relevant finding generated by the AI. Amazing. But this brings us back to that 57.9% accuracy on synthesis, right? Even with these successes, the human scientist is still essential.
Absolutely essential. Cosmos is an augmenter, a powerful tool, but not a replacement. The human role shifts maybe more toward high-level oversight, data curation, and especially interpreting these complex outputs.
Filtering the signal from the noise.
Exactly. Because Cosmos, as powerful as it is, still struggles with what the paper calls scientific taste. Two main issues there.
Okay, what are they?
First, it sometimes invents these weird quantitative metrics. They might be statistically valid based on the data, but they're conceptually obscure or just not meaningful to the scientific field.
Statistically sound, but scientifically uninteresting.
Right, and that ties into the second issue, that low accuracy on interpretation. Because it chases statistical significance, it can't easily tell if a correlation it finds is genuinely important or just, well, a correlation. It lacks that human intuition for what constitutes a valuable insight.
Needs a human filter for significance. Are there technical limits, too? Things holding it back from doing even more right now?
Yeah, a few practical things mentioned. It has a dataset size limit, currently around 5 GB, so really big raw data, like imaging stacks or whole genomes might be tough.
Okay.
It can't autonomously go out and find external datasets to validate its own findings. That's still a manual step. And a big one. The results seem quite sensitive to how the initial research objective is phrased by the human.
Garbage in, garbage out still applies, just at a higher level.
Sort of. Or maybe ambiguous instructions in, potentially weird results out. You need to frame the question carefully.
Got it. So summing up, Cosmos looks like this incredibly high-throughput research engine. It's traceable, it can replicate complex work, refine findings, even make novel discoveries across different scientific areas, all in potentially a tiny fraction of the human time.
Yeah, the world model approach seems to really crack the scalability problem for coherent, long-running scientific exploration by AI. It definitely feels like it shifts the main bottleneck in data-driven science.
From execution to interpretation.
I think so. We're getting to a point where the AI can do the coding, the reading, the stats, maybe faster and more comprehensively than we can. The limit becomes our ability to ask the right questions and understand the answers.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question for everyone listening, especially those in research or technical fields. If AI like Cosmos gets even better at the execution part, handling the 42,000 lines of code, the 1,500 papers flawlessly auditing, what does that mean for human scientists? What skills, beyond just technical execution, become the most important? Is it about defining value, scientific taste, asking creative questions, something else entirely?
That's definitely the key question to ponder as these tools become more integrated into how science gets done. What's the uniquely human contribution going forward?
Something to think about.